host Chansi. Okay, we are back with second episode. And also back from Safa Cafe, who again have not sponsored this video,
But
will at some. Hello and welcome back to Hear&How. It was so lovely hearing all the responses and from the first episode.
But genuinely just recording to talk.
Okay, since we started off with what stops us from creating, which is our creative fears, maybe now we should talk about
Why
we keep going, right? Okay, Radhika, why do you create? I create because if I don't, it feels like something stuck inside me. And then I feel uneasy. Like something feels off. Finally, when I make the thing, like make the song or like the comic or the poem or whatever, then I'm like, oh, okay, this makes sense. This is why I was feeling weird like for the past 2 days and I was ignoring whatever idea I had. So, yeah. Like, is it a physical feeling also? Yeah, sometimes it... Wow, this is a very good question. Sometimes it does feel like it's a physical feeling. My mood is just off, getting to starting the process, like the main impulse is like trying to feel unstuck, I guess. So that's a good question. Like, okay, there are two parts to this. First is what is the impulse to create? Yeah. And the second one is
how does it feel?
Yeah, how does it feel or what gets you to it once you've started or something like that.
What keeps you going?
What keeps you going? Saurabh. What is the impulse to create?
What is the impulse to create? I think my reason for both why I create in the first place and why I keep going is pretty much the same. Need for creation comes from a need to organize.
Explain. Like, well, okay, interesting. Explain, elaborate.
Like when I make something, when I'm making say even when I'm designing and not necessarily making art, I think it satisfies some urge in me to compartmentalize or like organize everything in a way that is presentable, looks good, or serves a purpose, whatever, right? And it works twofold. It organizes what I'm doing. It organizes something I'm doing work-wise. Like if it's for a client, then it organizes something in the brand that requires communication through design. Or, and especially this happens with me in art, it organizes my head. It's so meditative. I feel there's less importance to what I'm doing than how it's organizing things in my head.
Nice. Take a shot every time Saurabh said organize it. I'm joking. No, I'm joking. No. But so what you're saying was basically like it gives you a lot of clarity after you done the film.
Yeah.
That's so nice. That's really nice.
Most of my life is like this, tangled mess of thread. Okay. The first step to making anything is actually untangling all of that and making it into a ball of something you can use.
Yeah. Maybe balls of wood. Good metaphor. Getting tangled up. But it's true. And I feel like in the detangling process, it's like earphones, right?
Oh, that's a better.
No, this is right. No, wool is fabric. We're not comparing that. Also, I totally took this up from your wool metaphor. I like how aggressively we were like, no, don't be mean to yourself. Like untangling my earphones. It's so irritating in the first 30 seconds because you're just like pulling at it from all. I mean, that's what I do. Yeah. And then eventually you realize this is not getting you anywhere. Yeah. And that's when it becomes a meditative process also. Yeah. Because you're like, okay, where is the end? Where is it gone through? Pulling it through the loops. And then before you know it, it's all out there,
Yes, that.
Interesting. I think what you said, Radhika, about sense making, I feel like for me, the impulse comes from I have a thought or I have a theory which I want to test out if that makes sense. A little epiphany that I've had, will this be applicable to many other people? Yeah. Different mediums, different contexts, different age groups. Like, I feel like the impulse to create for me comes from trying to understand if my theory is in fact true. Like, does it work? And when I actually begin doing something, what keeps me going is, it's strange because it's like a loop. The way that I learn is by teaching, and the way that I teach is by learning.
Yeah.
You know, it never really
Say again.
The way that I learn is by teaching, and the way that I teach is by learning.
Wow.
Sick, profound. We're ending the part. Stuck, detangle, and learn. I have one more. See na. So when it comes to like drawing, it's funny in my head, and then I'm like, as you said, like for you it's will this work for others? For me it's will this be funny on paper? So I'm always, yeah, like that's my impulse. Like I'm always like, okay, like what will this look like? How can I exaggerate this more? Like how do I bring out this one point, which is your punchline, and then it's a funny one? Just realize we've all taught, like we all like teach/taught, have taught.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Nice. So I used to teach art to like kids from the age of 4 to 12.
Small.
Yeah, so when I was in college, and I think it was the same thing that we were talking about. Like, I was still learning myself, but I think because I was also teaching it, it made me go back and forth with what I was learning myself so much.
Yeah.
And since I was teaching kids, it was like, you know, you have to break it down, everything that you know already. You have to break it down to its simplest form and still be able to, because kids get a lot. You know, they understand a lot of even like larger concepts that we struggle with.
Yeah, like complex.
Yeah. The thing is, the ability to simplify something to the most necessary piece of information is so inherent in children
Yeah.
that I think we complicate it more,
We do.
you know?
Yeah. So largest reason for that is that kids are way more vulnerable because they don't, very naturally so, because they don't put layers of judgment or ego or guilt or shame on top, especially like really young kids. They're just going to say what they feel.
Yeah.
And that
It was
is
hard. It was hard.
what we keep saying inner child is basically who we were as kids.
Yeah.
Right? And that never goes away. That those impulses, those feelings, they don't really go away. We just tack on layers of like, oh, what will people think? Oh, this is what I should do. Oh, this will make me money. Oh, this will get me fame. Yeah. Oh, like people are telling me this is the right way to do things, so I will follow through. Yeah. And the kid is just like, no. So then I think our adult selves use art or use design or use creation or any kind of creation to express that no in a good way.
Yeah.
Kind of rebelling and going against the grain, you know. But yeah, I feel like the inner child thing directly connects to then why we create mental health. Why it's such a release. Yeah. I can speak for myself when I say that at points where I was really not in good mental health, just by creating and getting whatever I was feeling out on paper or, you know, in my notes app, it just made me feel like lighter. Like what you said, like when something is stuck and then when you put it out there, you've gotten it out of your system, you feel lighter physically, like physiologically lighter. I also feel like the reason why we feel stuck when we are ignoring our impulses is because, as you said, like it helps you process your emotions, right? Or like the not so good emotions, the heavier ones. And then sometimes we don't go with that impulse because we're afraid of what will come out. Yeah. Like if it's too intense or if it's like, what is it going to be? You never know what it's going to be actually, like when you have an impulse. But I think choosing to follow through on that impulse is always something that's so relieving because then we actually feel like, okay, you've processed it, you've organized it, you've proven your theory, you know you'll make it out of the tunnel. We were talking about this earlier. We don't want to stay in that in-between phase because that is scary to us. We either want to we want to get to the end more often than not, even before we start. It's funny because our own experiences in the past have proven to us that the journey is what is the most rewarding and where you get most value from. But it's like we have like amnesia or something. Oh, what? No, end is rewarding. You know? It's weird. Idea of like general gratification is, hey, Kayla, someone will say, shabash beta. And then you're like, okay, done. Now this was worth it. Forgets about art piece, moves on, you know?
Yeah.
You forget about it because you shared it once with someone and then you're like, yeah, okay, done. So it's,
Yeah.
but yeah, you should engage with your work. Like even, and it's not narcissistic at all. Like it's a joy to like look back and be like, oh wow, this is what I thought and made and use this brush, I guess. Yeah. And I feel like especially with social media, because that's a big part of now, you know, a lot of creators' lives. The lifespan of something that you make, we have made it so short because we only associate it with the likes that it got or the engagement that it got in that very moment.
Yeah.
You know, like people earlier who didn't have, say, Instagram or, you know, any of these platforms, I feel like the lifespan of their work was much, much longer because they let it be.
Yeah.
They didn't define it or judge it by these metrics.
Correct.
You know, which were only dependent on external validation.
Yeah. And I also feel this is a sad state of affairs today because, say, if I posted something, then I might not want to post something similar. Thinking, okay, people are going to think that I've already done this and I'm doing the same thing again and again. That should be new, constantly evolving, constantly, like your work has to change. Yeah, relevant. It has to
or like
stay relevant.
That pressure of creating something new and
Yeah.
like a variety and adapting and also coming up with things and also making them and sharing them the right way, in the right medium, with the right hashtags. What? No, it's immense pressure and but I feel like why we continue to do it is we also have moments of clarity or like things that remind us of why we do what we do.
Yeah.
Or like, you know, things that inspire us. Like it could be someone else's art, for instance. I want to know what is one such moment or piece of art or something that you heard or read or saw that kind of, it was that moment of clarity for you. Like, yeah, this is why we do what we do. So I can't choose. I mean, there's lots. Yeah. Like one of the many. Let's say what.
I have mine.
Say.
I think one of my defining moments in life when I thought, okay, this is what I want to do. Technically, I was already on that path, but I was still unsure whether I fit into the art culture. This was in my first year of art school, where we had this course which was, what is art? Okay, that was like this ambiguous question, and the whole course was revolved around that. I think you also...
I did it. Design School 101, guys.
I went into it just not knowing what it would be because it gave little to no information about it. And I was so pleasantly surprised by what the course was, because this was a very intense, long course on the theory behind art and the context that you place your art in. I think what inspired me the most was learning about, in the theory part of it, was learning about the movement, the modern art movement. Was like a rebellion. Started off as this group of artists who did not want to conform to the Renaissance.
Oh, Renaissance. Okay.
That people didn't want to conform to it anymore because there was this board of art or like registration or something. I don't know the name, but we'll find it. Which kind of registered artists and their work as fine art, and then only then you could call yourself that and have your work displayed and
be in gallery. They were gatekeeping.
Yeah, they were gatekeeping. Okay, and a lot of artists realized that registration or the blue tick of that time.
The blue tick.
Okay, was so unnecessary because all art was just looking like the same art.
Yeah.
They had this whole, the Salon of the Rejected in Paris, which only took in like a gallery space for artists that were rejected.
Yeah.
And that is how the modern art movement came across. And that all of this just made me feel like there was something in that person that wanted to not conform.
Yeah.
You know, and wanted to just be new.
What scares people a lot is when something new comes about, right? Like it's faced with resistance. Why is it why is it that people have to rebel against it?
Yeah.
Because they're faced with resistance.
Yeah.
Because no one wants you to go against the grain. No one wants you to think outside the box. Like, stick to the script, I think one of the movies that I was inspired by, and it's recent, and it won like the Oscars and lots of things, is the movie Everything Everywhere All at Once, which I have said this name so many times in this month.
You use it in sentences also.
I use it as a regular phrase now, but that's the thing. And I didn't know too much about the movie when I watched it. And then when I read up about it, I found out that not only was it this amazing movie that had this impact on me, which made me realize that kindness and love makes the world go around, and that we need to like keep doing what makes us happy. We need to keep the people who we love close, and we need to keep putting in the effort because it is worth it.
Yeah.
Not only did I learn that, but when I read about the BTS of making the movie, it was made like the whole team was remote. They all worked from home. And they were all like, they weren't like established animators and things. Everything they learned was like through tutorials and stuff, guys, like on the job kind of a thing. I mean, they were really good, but I'm sure even for them, what the movie turned out to be was so much bigger than what even they had imagined.
Yeah.
And that always excites me and gets me very like emotional, where I'm these ideas that live inside our heads, or like these impulses, they can be so much bigger than what we can imagine.
Yeah.
So,
Wow, man. We have to watch this movie.
Yeah. So for me, like impact-wise, what really helped me, you know how you just stop reading when you grow up, and that's what happened. But I had this faculty in Symbiosis who taught us short stories from around the world. That course, I feel like it like gave my life color, because our teacher, like our faculty, then she passed away, but I think she was genuinely a light in this world. And she taught us how to read stories that were not from Britain or America, but Latin America and like, Japan or whatever, and India. And they were not your normal narratives. They weren't your like white person narrative. It wasn't your everyday Shakespeare, who I love. But they were stories of people who you hadn't heard of. So you had to learn how to say their names also. And they were stories with like strong female leads, or like there were stories with magic in it. And when we read them in a liberal arts college, you're like, where's the logic, right? But she taught us how to remove logic and put it aside. She literally told me in one class, like she literally told me specifically, saying we need to get off our high horses and just enjoy, like go with the flow of the story. And that moment, I still remember the class was quiet and I was like, oh, this is true, but also guys. No, but it makes such a huge difference, because it's made like everything that I do now or that I will do in the future, I'm sure like that was such a like, a very gentle like slap on the back. But it was so necessary, because I think we take everything so seriously that we miss out on the magic also. And as you said, like with Everything Everywhere All at Once, they learned on the job.
Yeah.
And I think that's the magic of creating something, even though you don't know, even though it doesn't make sense, even though it's like you're getting there, right?
Yeah. As someone who's not a beginner, in fact, the pressure and the high horse syndrome is very real. Because you suddenly start feeling like you're somebody.
Yeah.
And that can be a very tricky thing to navigate. This is not something that I've made is not good enough to put out there.
Yeah.
Or good enough to share. But like, what is good enough? Like, whose metric are you going by? Where is this defined metric of, if it's this, then it's not good enough. And if it's this, then yes, you may go ahead.
Yeah.
Like, even our own...
Let yourself into your gallery.
Yeah. Can I be gatekeeping our own creations?
Yeah.
Based off of like some scale. Like whose voice is in your head?
Yeah.
Is the question that I keep asking myself nowadays, because when I find myself judging or stopping myself from creating or sharing something that has come from within, like an impulse or a thought or an idea, and then I'm just like, oh no, but what if it's too dash? And I'm like, whose voice is this? This is not my voice, because clearly my voice is wanting to do this thing, my inner child. There are some influences which can go in the complete opposite direction, where they hold you back from actually expressing yourself. But there are also many good influences out there. Which, like, that's the voice we need to
Correct.
tune into our heads, like FM radio, this voice. Tune out the static. Tune into the goodness of people like your teacher. To be honest, the first time you do something, yes, there's the uncertainty of it all. You don't know how it's going to be received. But there is a freedom in knowing that we're just testing it out.
Yeah.
The second time you do it, you're like, okay, this worked. So should we follow same format? But then will it look very similar? Like exactly what you were saying, right? Will people think this is the same?
Yeah.
Or this is not giving any more value?
Correct.
So like low-key, before we were going to shoot this episode, I did have that thought for like a moment. How to consistently keep giving value. But I think what we decided initially before we started our podcast was that we were going to always hold like vulnerability as our North Star, like a guiding light. So then I kind of pacified myself and I was like, as long as we're being honest and we're being authentic with what we're sharing, it is going to provide value. If not to a single soul, it will give us value. That nervousness of how to do something well again.
Yeah.
Where so much of it is just exposing yourself to the possibilities and being vulnerable again. Because unless we do that, we're not going to arrive at something
Correct.
new or like a new epiphany.
I've heard this a lot and I've even felt it myself that the whole process of creation is considered so magical and so like innate. Yeah. So
when it's actually very methodical.
It's very methodical actually. And you can pinpoint things that you do to make it.
Yeah.
To just
make it.
Yeah, to make it.
Yeah,
you
it's
can.
true. It's true.
And I feel that we've given in to this myth of we don't know what it just is. Creation comes to me, I do it. And a part of it is true, but a large part of it is also being aware of what you're doing.
Yeah. We all acknowledge that, I'm showing up at my desk. I draw a line like this.
Yeah.
So, or like even skills that you have gained over time, sometimes it just becomes so innate that you're not thinking about those skills. You're not honing them because you're not aware of them so much. You just picked it up, you've stored it somewhere, and now you're executing.
Yeah.
But I think when we talk about it, when we share more about it, and when you're trying to teach someone, how do you make a reel? Even something like that, then you think about all the steps you've learned. So to get there, you've practiced it so much that now it's
natural.
Yeah.
I feel like many times we realize what you were saying. We realize the skills that we've kind of harnessed and grown when people tell us about them. Like when people say, like your tuk is so good. We sometimes tend to take a step back and be like, like this is interesting. Like maybe I do this. How do I do it?
Yeah.
Correct.
And then retracing your steps. Yes. Sometimes when I have an idea or not even idea, when I'm say recording something or I'm drawing something and I'm just like, why did I feel the need to draw this right now? Or why did I feel the impulse to record this right now? And what is it giving me? And how can someone else learn that or benefit from knowing how to do this? Sometimes questioning why we do things leads us to be better teachers or facilitators of this thought.
Yeah. For me, it was like the reason why I asked you this was because I only started drawing consistently because I was telling students who draw how to write. And they wouldn't write. Like they're afraid of writing because of how they'll sound. I think like flipping what I was like asking them to do by making myself draw, sign up for workshops which involve drawing, being uncomfortable, and then, enjoying it. Like it was a journey. Like I think it took me solid 8 months to like get comfortable with the idea of like saying, okay, I make comics also.
But I feel like affirming that for ourselves is so important. Like if there's something that you want to do or be or practice, telling yourself that you are doing it or like, you are capable of doing it. It does so much. Like it actually, hear yourself saying that and your mind is like, yeah, like maybe I am. Yeah, I think to conclude, the middle is not such a bad place to be, because I feel like you have these kinds of epiphanies and thoughts only when you're going through something. In the middle is when you're feeling all the feels and everything is hitting you from all ends, and you're just like, yeah, I started, I'm in this, and I will continue to make and continue to create, because it'll get me somewhere.
Yeah.
It will get us somewhere, guys.
Yeah.
We are getting there all together. And ask yourself,
Why do you guys create?
why do you create? Tell us what your impulse is to create, and why do you keep creating?
Yeah.
Despite voices in your head. Like, was there something recently which inspired you and kept you going? Please tell us, because we love to know about these things, and we love to read about like others' moments of inspiration. Long answers are always welcome.
Sharing.
Paragraphs and comments are encouraged.
Yeah. Thank you for watching us, guys. This has been so much fun. We really enjoy talking to each other. And it's even more fun because we know there are more people listening. Hopefully. This was the second episode of our podcast, and there will be more till we run out of things to talk about, which is
Highly unlikely.
Yeah. If you liked the episode, please consider subscribing to the channel and follow us on Instagram for lots of fun content, ideas, workshops, events, and things. We will see you in the next one. Okay, bye.
why do I create?
Talk into this, okay?
Why do I create?
Yeah. That's so nice. That's really nice.
Wow.
Nice. Nice. None of the same. So yeah.
It's also because when you feel like
It's okay, aren't we?
sorry.
Okay, Vicky.